Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this month's edition of Métis Coffee Talk. My name is Keith Henry. I'm the president of the BC Métis Federation. Coming to you live for this Wednesday, December 18th. Hard to believe we're only 1 week away from Christmas already, but happy to be joining you here this evening for our monthly update from the BC Métis Federation about Métis news and stories and issues that are affecting our Métis community here in British Columbia. I'm joining you live from our beautiful office in Vancouver, British Columbia. You can see over my shoulder that's we've got Louis in the background, our resident buffalo that's part of our cultural center, and I've got some special guests here tonight with me that are going to give us some updates in their department. So first of all, and you have to excuse the old school move here, but I got to welcome Angel Fisher to the show. Angel, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone.
And Angel, what's your title again?
Yeah, Angel Fisher, Director of Conservation here at BCMF.
Perfect. And you'll be giving us some great updates about what's happening in the Conservation Department.
Yep, sure will.
And to my other side, I've got our friend who many people will know, and certainly back by unpopular demand, Mr. Joe Desjardins.
Hello, everybody.
Joe, what's your title?
My title is Métis, Director of Research at the BC Métis Federation.
Well, I'm glad you put the emphasis on Métis. That was good. That was good. That's good. So, Joe, you're going to give some, I know we're going to actually share a new video that your department's working on just to get stories about Métis history in British Columbia. And so we look forward to hearing from you later on in the show.
You bet.
Thanks. So there are a number of items to update us. So thanks. We'll look forward to hearing from Angel and Joe here very shortly. But yeah, lots of issues, items to talk about, updates for the membership, of course, and our partners watching tonight live online. I just want to let people know as well, we do have shows archived and are available, of course, on a variety of platforms. In case, just a reminder to everyone, we do have a YouTube account at BC Métis, so our shows are often archived there as well. If you don't go to our website or you're not on our email distribution list, and just to remind people that we have a very active YouTube account, and certainly look forward to encouraging people to subscribe to that particular YouTube account. Now, there are another number of other sort of stories to bring us up to speed on, and I want to start this evening talking about conservation. And there's of course many other things to update tonight, but you know, we've got Angel with us here this evening. And I know, Angel, the Conservation Department has been very busy, and we know we've updated the name and so forth with the Conservation Department. But, you know, I'll move us camera so we can see both of us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angel, I mean, you guys have been quite busy in November, December. I know we've put out stuff on our email newsletters and so forth. But, yeah, why don't you give us a quick update on what's happening and what this particular event was in November that you guys were hosting on the island?
Yeah, so this particular event was called Our Generations of Wisdom Retreat. It was an intergenerational retreat. We did have one earlier in the year. It was an aquatic youth retreat. This time we kind of honed in on some things we wanted to change with the first one, and we thought it would be really great to incorporate some Métis elders into this group. So we went back to Tofino, and we had 4 Métis youth and 4 Métis elders on this retreat.
Perfect. You know, I know when you have a very active Instagram account with the conservation team under the handle Coastal Water Protectors, the sort of the title we had before. But there's a great video about this retreat you had in Tofino. Do you mind if we show the video?
Yeah, please.
Okay, just give us a quick second, everyone online. We'll pull this up and see if we can make this work. Of course, the thrills of technology. Just one quick second. So obviously, lots of stuff happening here, and I know on your Instagram account, I'm just scrolling through for everyone online. Again, if they want to learn, see some of the activities and that, looks like it was a pretty neat event. I mean, like the weather didn't look all that comfortable, but how was that?
Yeah, so we had a few main activities that we did. One of the main ones, which is our favorite, is a helicopter tour. So for this particular trip, we flew up to Paradise Lake, and that one was kind of
Sorry.
experienced all weather in that particular retreat because we started out where it was sunny. We got up and we got to land at Paradise Lake and have a walk around up there, which was amazing, breathtaking views. And then it started to kind of snow and hail as we were taking off. So they did tell us a couple more minutes down at that lake and we probably wouldn't have made it back that night potentially. So that was a lot of fun though. We also did a winter wilderness boat tour where we got to go out for about 3 hours out through the inlet of Tofino area. And we got to see some wildlife and it was a great bonding time for the team. And we took hikes with everyone. We did some watercolor paint activities. We had a wonderful tour of the Euclid Aquarium. We did partner interviews, which was an absolute favorite this time around, where we paired an elder and a youth together and they got to spend some one-on-one time interviewing each other on what it was like growing up Métis and their connection to nature and land and the water. And then every night we got together and we shared meals together and laughter and we had wonderful discussions. Each night was a different theme. So we had past, present, and future for each night that we were there. And it was a very memorable experience for sure.
I like Earl's watercolor here. It looks like a boomerang.
Yeah, so that's it's a walkway down at the Tofino resort that we were at. And when you walk on that particular boardwalk, people have their names carved into the planks. So he kind of took that as inspiration for his painting and put all of our names on it.
Well, obviously, these are kind of the activities we're doing on the conservation side. So just, I thank all the BC Métis Federation members and partners that are contributing to this. And actually, you see, like, one of the great byproducts is bringing the elders and some of the youth together and just sharing that time together, right? I mean, that's a nice. I know last year you did more was a youth retreat.
Yeah.
This year was sort of a combination of both, right? So it's nice to see that kind of evolution of that. But there are so many other things happening with the department. I mean, obviously, you've got an important forum coming shortly here in January, and I know we've talked a bit about it last month on the Coffee Talk. But what's the update on the status of the the conference that's coming up in Richmond, BC?
Yeah, so that one is going to be our third annual conservation conference. This one is titled Beyond the Blue, and it's going to take place January 18th out in Richmond at the Sheraton Vancouver Airport Hotel. And it's turning out to be a wonderful event. We have 7 guest speakers. This one's going to be a little bit different than our other conferences. So even if you attended previous ones, this one's going to be a lot different and definitely worth checking out. We're going to be having an expo hall with this conference where there's going to be vendors selling local sustainable products. There's going to be informational tables, and something that a lot of people are really looking forward to is the Sea Dome by Oceanwise, which is a 20-foot long sea dome structure that's 14 feet tall, and it's an immersive experience. So you're going to go inside and it feels like you're under the water.
Well, how many people do you expect at this conference?
130.
130, and it's basically full already.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
so if you didn't register, we apologize, but we are full.
We have it open momentarily for a couple extra spots. So if you haven't already registered and you'd like to, I believe our manager Zia is going to have it open for a few more days for people to get in any last minute registrations.
Well, so that's obviously a major piece of opportunity for many of our members. So if you're watching tonight, how do they register? Go to the
Yeah, on the website you can find it, coastalwaterprotectors.ca. I believe it's also up on the BC Métis Federation website. And if you follow us on Instagram, our bio, our link tree header up there, you can find it on there too.
Perfect. Now you've got some other things I know coming up as well in February. This leads to a sort of a second conference as well in February. What's happening in Victoria?
Yeah, so one of our goals this year was also to have a second conference out on Vancouver Island for our members out there. So this one's going to be taking place February 8th at the Oak Bay Beach Hotel in Victoria. This one's titled Our Planet, Our Future. This one's going to be a bit of a smaller scaled event, so it's going to be more of an intimate gathering, so you can have more one-on-one discussions with people. This one's going to be, our goal is 60 in attendance. It's going to be a full day again, though, of guest speakers. We're also going to have an art exhibit from Louise Lambert of Wine Country Studios as well. And something that we're really looking forward to in the evening is a cocktail reception that we're going to have some live performers there and have some appetizers, and it's all overlooking the Oak Bay beach. So it's going to be wonderful. If you haven't been there, it's definitely worth checking out.
Well, we just got some requests to speak louder because apparently Dawn can barely hear us. So we'll try and be louder for everyone. I don't know how else to fix that right now, but hopefully it's coming through for most of us out there. But we'll just try and speak a little louder and more directionally into the computer. But Angel, that's we look forward to hearing about getting more awareness of the February 8th event, and any advice for anyone wanting to participate. Like, what is the options for people to be involved or not in February 8th?
Yeah, so for this particular event, if you are a member in Vancouver Island, a notice went out today to everyone. And if you are not local to Vancouver Island but would like to participate, you can send me an email at a.fisher@bcmétis.com, and I'll get you set up with the registration forms.
Perfect. One last area that I know we've talked about on the show before, but you guys continue to use technology to share the word of the work you're doing on conservation. You know, I brought it up on the screen now, the podcast series. What's the latest podcast?
Yeah, so the latest one that's out there right now is all about the Lophelia pertusa coral reef, which is essentially a reef that is thriving and striving in our British Columbian waters, but it normally doesn't, and it probably shouldn't be. So it's kind of a sign of environmental changes and global warming, but it's a really interesting informational piece that we did on that. And then I know upcoming ones, we have a really great one that we're looking forward to putting out there with, we interviewed a couple ladies from the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Society. So that one will be coming out shortly, and it's going to be packed with information.
Right. So all the members and folks wanting to get involved, go to Spotify, look for Coastal Water Protectors, are called the Aqua Agenda, sorry, podcast. This is now the 12th episode. Is there many more episodes coming out till March 31st this year? Or?
Yeah, so by the time we reach March 31st, we'll have 26 published out there. So we have 2 in the queue waiting to come out in early January, and then they're just gonna keep coming on a bi-weekly basis.
Perfect. All right, well, lots going on. Angel, any final comments on, obviously, a lot of, like, we got the January event coming up, the February event. People can listen into the podcast, all in the work you're doing to help our Métis members, our community, our partners contribute to conservation, whether it's on land or in water. Any final thoughts or excitement for the new year coming up you want to share?
Yeah, just some exciting news. We are planning on having our 3rd retreat coming up in March. So it's really in the infancy stages of planning, but I thought it was some exciting news to share tonight. So definitely stay tuned for that, and we'll have information out in the new year.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Angel. I'm just gonna I know there's some folks, we'll try our best to speak louder into the computer for the rest of the show, because I know some folks are really on me online, so I appreciate the notifications. Team Federation out there. What I want to do though is we don't have our live band tonight because Renee and Nat are in town for some meetings, but not to fear, we do have Renee in a recording from some of his prior music that he's done. And so I'm going to bring up a song or two from him and the band that they recorded last year. I'll just play one of the songs randomly now, and we'll just have a quick sort of break on from the update to some music. So enjoy this Métis music from our own Renee Therian and, of course, his band. And we'll try, now that that's all, that was a quick song from Renee. We'll actually go with one more, just as we cut from the break. We'll go one more song from Renee. So thanks. Of course, Renee's not with us tonight, but I just wanted to just say, we don't have Renee live here tonight, but one of the gentlemen in that video is Mike with the black hat on playing the guitar, accompanying Renee, was Sean on the other bass guitar, but he's got the black hat specifically. Mike is just coming out of the hospital. He had a major heart surgery, and we wish Mike and his family all the best as they are in recovery. I know Mike's on his way back to Terrace, and just want to acknowledge and thank him for his contributions to our community. And of course, we just wish him an ongoing and just as speedy recovery as possible. We look forward to having you back on the show, Mike, and we just hope you and your wife and your family are doing okay in this time of when you're just recovering. And we're just glad you're safe, and we look forward to seeing you again very, very soon, we hope. So with that, I'm just going to sort of move us on to some of the next topics. I've got my friend Joe Desjardins here. He introduced himself as the Métis Director of Research. He emphasized that, so we're gonna welcome him. He's going to be right between me and Louis here. So Joe, welcome back to the show. I know you're doing a lot of work on research of the Pacific Northwest. We know a lot of the research continues in other parts of the country, but how are things going just generally, just to give people a sense of the work you're working on, and then let's show them some of the new video you've done recently.
Thank you, Keith. It's exciting to be involved in the work, working with our local researchers. We have a team of researchers, community-based researchers, and they're involved in repatriating the history. In other words, recovering their own family history. We need to be able to connect our family histories to identifiable historical events. Some of our families came from the Red River, but we are learning more and more that there is an identifiable Métis population community right here in the Pacific Northwest. and they just weren't here as part of work gangs. They weren't invisible, they were here. And more our research is telling, it's showing us this. And the little clip I have today, Keith, speaks to that point. In whether it's Langley or different places where we wouldn't even think that Métis exists, we're starting to realize through diligent community research and through, support from the members and support from the Métis people, there's a growing groundswell that people understand that there are hidden Métis historic communities right here in the Pacific Northwest, and more specifically in the Lower Mainland, Keith.
Well, good. Let's watch the video and show people some of the work you guys are doing and how you're trying to summarize it in a way that people can have an appreciation for the research and the kind of work we're seeing. So this is, let's let the video speak for itself. We'll come back right with you right after.
Welcome to Hidden Métis Histories. In 1827, the Hudson Bay Company built Fort Langley. Métis have long histories across the entire Pacific Northwest. There were Métis hubs around trading posts. We see family names like Allard, Fallardeau, and Morrison. These retired servants of the fur trade and their Métis families settled places like Surrey, Langley, Maple Ridge around their established kinship networks. When you visit the Fort Langley Cemetery, Métis are hidden in plain sight. They are remembered as French-Canadian narratives, or as Canadian heroes. St. George's Church is the site of a pioneer cemetery, described as the oldest white man's burial ground, west of Winnipeg. A newspaper article from 1949 mentions 23 graves. There are only 2 tombstones evident. The same article states, the Indians maintained a burial site further to the south and approximately behind the side of the school now. Stories that are almost legends claim that half-breeds and people not in good standing in the community were also buried there. Popular news accounts make Métis out to be undesirables. They were erased and forced to the margins of British Columbian society. Another account talks about Stolo Burial Site near where Hudson Bay Street meets Francis Avenue. Is this where the Métis were buried? People that say there is no such thing as a Métis community in the Lower Mainland are suppressing history. Descendants are in the process of remembering the past and recovering their history and memory. There is a historic Métis community in Langley. How will we remember them?
So Joe, that's obviously that's the latest iteration of the work you're doing. How did, like, in the research you're doing, I know people, we post these pieces and there will be those that are skeptical, we know that. But what's your answer? Like how do you help people understand why this matters and why it's relevant and why it's actually accurate? Like, can you walk people through the methodology you guys use as researchers before you produce a video like that?
You bet. Part of our work is engaging our communities through protocol, through research methodology it's an Indigenous research methodology. What that means is we're building accountable relationships based on trust with our community. We researchers, this is very different than, say, hiring someone and just sending him into the archive to produce a report for Métis people that might well benefit other people. And we see the challenges of that approach, even in current relationships between the government of Canada and some of these national Indigenous organizations today, Keith, where some of these organizations have pulled away from the MNC. Basically, the government approach where they don't necessarily have a clear pathway to meaningful research relationships with Métis people, it's falling apart. So what we've said is that, consistent with the resurgence that our members have tasked us to do, that we're really working toward engaging our communities. And that's where we start. We start with our communities. And by going into the archives, by talking with people, by building these research relationships, we have over 400 pages of raw data and a growing archive, repository that really speaks to the fact that there are Métis. We know that there are Métis people right across the Pacific Northwest. Just the other day, I found evidence of Métis people right in Whatcom County here. We know also, I could go on and just talk about these stories. And it's disingenuous if someone says that these people are First Nations. We see academics that are revising academic papers to say that these people, these Métis people were actually First Nations. And we know that's not the case from the research. And it would be our hope that people would listen to the research, listen to the what the Métis communities are saying about this research, because as the story tells it, they're actually engaged in recovering their own history. And I think as governments, as industry, as First Nations, they ought to be proud to be able to come along beside these people and help them do this. You got to understand, these people are probably among the most marginalized, dispossessed people in Canadian society. So it's incumbent on us to be able to assist them. And that's, in a nutshell, is the research methodology. It's supporting communities.
Yeah. So Joe, a couple things there. We're going to cut to a video clip because this week we did post, and I want to thank Jeannie Cardinal who sent this to me, and it came out just yesterday. It's of a First Nation person in Ontario, and some of you may have seen it on my social media, but I'm going to show it here because he's a grassroots First Nation person who's questioning why First Nation leadership continues to fight this narrative that Métis didn't exist in that case, Ontario. But that's the way he's talking is the same way we're being treated here. And Joe, one thing I want to remind people of is when you put that video together, there were very specific Métis names that were part of that fur trading original development, which was pre-BC established date of 1859. And those names again were in the family names in Fort Langley.
Yeah, well, there's many names. Allard,
Allard.
you know, Cromarty. I didn't mention Cromarty. Morrison, and different names like this. There's many more, you know.
And what we're discovering through the research is the fact that many of these individuals stayed in British Columbia after the trade, it just simply faded away. They were around Fort Langley. They ended up, staying there within their kinship networks within this area.
Right. Whether they went down to Washington State or Oregon, or whether they stayed here, we see this happening all the way through. And some of these names are, like I said in the article, like we were trying to tell, they're hidden in plain sight. They're still there, Keith.
Yeah. So let's show just why this matters, because we know we face a lot of challenges. So I'm going to play some of this video. I won't play it all. It's a 13-minute segment, but I want you online to realize, like, we're battling this political agenda by some First Nations. That's the largest threat to our ability to be Indigenous and reclaim who we are, and in British Columbia specifically. So I want to show this for a few minutes, and I'm going to ask both Angel and Joe to weigh in on their response to this.
Spent her time in a 170 campaign.
Well, hello everybody in Facebook world. It's Baum Giesik from the Great Lakes. Hopefully you're doing well and that you're having a great holiday season, and that you're gearing up for good ceremonies, if that's your thing, whatever those ceremonies are, and that your family is healthy and happy. But also we want to send blessings to all those out there that don't have, the simplest things in life: food, people that love them. Maybe they're not feeling well, they don't have good health. We send blessings their way too. I asked for those this time of year, during the strongest part of winter, that we have our ceremonies and we offer our prayers and send them all over the world. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about some of the land issues that continuously blanket discussions, that continuously blanket the Indigenous political arena. And what I'm talking about is Métis people having land. And I want to talk about, Métis people having land in Ontario. And so, growing up, I knew that there was Indigenous people that spoke Anishinaabe. Opposite Anishinaabek. They were mixed bloods. And they weren't allowed in the treaty, They didn't want, and maybe they didn't want treaty. But during the treaty, you know, the chiefs wanted them to be a part of what was happening. They wanted them to benefit because those were our relatives. Those were a part of our kinship bundles, and we were part of theirs. And we also were allies during all of those wars back in the 17 and 1800s. And so, you know, we were all fighting for our lands. And for hundreds of years, they were living amongst us or beside us, and they were hunting and fishing and trapping and living their life. And then all of a sudden now there's nothing. They're not allowed nothing. They're not given nothing. They're nothing. And yet we have non-native people just going along and just developing and destroying everything. And yet these people that have been beside us all this time get nothing and are acknowledged as nothing. It's an embarrassment. I'm embarrassed of my people who go against and oppress other Indigenous people. It's an embarrassment that we go against our own kinship people. Those are our relatives. But yet the non-native people, they get a free pass to do whatever they want. It's not right. I'm very, very embarrassed. And I'm very ashamed of how, you know, these organizations are treating Indigenous people that have a responsibility to feed their families, that have a responsibility, that have blood ties to this land. I'm embarrassed. They don't speak for me. But yet non-native people get to do whatever the hell they want. And yet as soon as somebody that claims to be, you know, Métis or whatever, a half-breed, nothing. It's like they're lower than you know, garbage. How dare we treat people like that? These are Indigenous people that have been with us, fought with us, died with us. They say, oh, they have no land. Well, what were they doing for 200 years while they were living beside us? Were they sneak hunting? Were they sneak trapping? Were they sneak fishing? No. They were exercising their life on the land. The same with us. Of course they had land. Now all of a sudden they say, oh, they got nothing. But yet non-native people have everything. I'm not buying this. This is racism. And I understand the complexities of what Métis is in Ontario. I get it. That's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about legitimate Indigenous people in Ontario, so-called Ontario, that have historically always lived amongst us, that now have nothing and are being degraded and are being pushed aside, and they're being told that they have no rights to the land. And that it's being done by our Anishinaabeg leadership. Yet they benefit off the very sacrifices that these people gave during all of those wars where they fought with us, defending our lands. They were our allies. We have legitimate agreements and treaties with them during times of war so our lands would be protected. And they fought and they died with us in those wars. Especially against the Americans. They were ready to fight with us against the British. They laid their lives down for us. The ground was covered red with their blood along with ours. Now they're not acknowledged. Now they have nothing. Oh boy, it's so convenient to forget. isn't it? Yes, there's complexities about the term Métis and all of this stuff. I get it. And I know that there's complexities about the legitimacy of who is Métis and who isn't and all of this stuff. I get it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about legitimate Indigenous people. Pissed me off, man. I will stand up. And I will stand up for anybody who's Indigenous to have the responsibility to feed their families, to live their life, to be a part of the ecological solution that's needed here on these lands. Why? Because that's how my grandparents were. That's how their grandparents were. That's how their...
I'll just stop it there. Obviously, I don't know Isaac. This individual who was shared, he's not an elected chief or council within his Anishinaabe community in Ontario. But he's touching at something that I'm hearing more and more with grassroots First Nation people in different parts of this country that don't understand why First Nation leadership seems so focused on destroying any notion of certain Métis organizations or certain Métis identity or any, Joe talked about in the video about erasing us from our historical existence. It touched me in a way, like I said, I don't know this individual. I really thank him for being honest about his feelings, because I think I'm hearing more and more that we look here in Vancouver, my friend Angel with us at the conservation conference, we were literally threatened and intimidated about having somehow we were asserting rights over First Nation territory, which wasn't true at all. It was a conservation piece. And the weird thing about all this, and I'm going to cut to my colleagues here right away or ask them some questions, but we reach out, we ask for protocol, they tell us to follow protocol, and unfortunately what we get is silence often and some sort of vague promise they're going to follow up, but they never did. Even in that case last January, we had this big, almost like literally scaring younger people in our conference, and we de-escalated it, found our way through it, but there's never been follow-up. I've reached out multiple times to the representatives to say, are we going to follow up? Never was, never will be. So I do think there has to be an honest conversation that that's not reasonable or fair, and I don't believe they're following their duty to follow protocol either when we ask for it. And I find it interesting that they will prop up non-Indigenous governments, they will prop up non-Indigenous partners, and they will let them do whatever they want as long as there's money transferred. And I think that that's got to be talked about. It's uncomfortable, but it's got to be talked about. And it's not okay. It's not okay. You don't get to erase us culturally from who we are. So anyways, I'll get off that soapbox, but Angel, any reaction and your thoughts to, that's a very heavy conversation obviously, but you were at the conservation conference we had last January, and I see this video and I think to myself, too bad they didn't have I'm not here to belittle Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh. I have tons of respect for the First Nation community themselves. I've worked alongside them, many of them as individuals, but that was actually a life-changing experience for me, and not in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And that's my first time seeing this video, and it's definitely a powerful one and definitely an emotional one as well, because, exactly what Isaac's talking about, we definitely deal with out here. And like Keith mentioned with the conservation conference, our conferences are just all about spreading awareness and education on conservation. And I always take the stance that when it comes to global warming and climate change, it can't be left to small individual groups or just certain individuals. It does affect all of us, and it does take all of us to make those changes. And there will only be changes if we all work together on that, regardless of our ancestral background.
Yeah. Joe, I'll switch maybe to you to give some thoughts. What's your reaction to that video? I mean, obviously, it's a very powerful video and something that you and I talk about a lot. And I know our viewers here tonight, whether they're watching live or online after, what's your reaction to that? What's your thoughts about his words, and how does that make you feel to hear that?
Well, Keith, that was a very powerful comments, from Isaac. And he made one comment. He said, "It's convenient to forget," and that's a powerful statement right there, because in spite of generations of denial, and to Keith's point, all this denial that's taking place, this anti-Métis rhetoric, our researchers, our people, our communities, they have the right to recover all the complexity and the nuance of our history, the richness of Métis past right here. And they have and all their kinship networks, I should say. And I really appreciated what Isaac was saying about, our cousins, we're kin. And we need to, and the other point I wanted to make, the distinctions-based approach of the government, that's led us down a road of harm, cultural harm, in many ways. And we've seen successive governments, and most particularly the current governments in Canada, trying to find ways to appropriate that into their politics when it comes to relating with Métis and First Nations, and it hasn't worked.
So let me just point something out. I'll just come back to you guys. This is why this matters, whether it's distinction based or the danger of what's happening. So let's look at a resolution that was passed by one of the First Nation leadership groups in British Columbia, on your screen here before you. So this was passed here. It's resolution, as you can see on the screen here, 2024-07. It's from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs this past February. Resolution to reject the prioritization of Michif language classes in BC schools. Like talk about cultural harm. We don't represent all the K-12 Métis individuals at all in this province, but just so everyone knows online, right now in the school system and with the current investments for Indigenous education, there is an estimated 21,000 K-12 Métis people that have identified as Métis. So the school districts get about $1,750 roughly a piece. It's about a $36 to $38 million investment that's shared out to the different school districts to enhance Indigenous education. Now, in some of these school districts, the Métis registration is far greater than local First Nations, and that's not meant to be disrespectful. That's just a fact. Yet now First Nation groups, and this is one of all the First Nation leadership groups, have actually passed. How many of our Métis communities even aware of this systemic racism that we see about that we should not even have? It's fighting the prioritization of Michif language classes in BC schools. Am I the only person that feels like would any part of this country allow someone to not allow East Indian language in the school, Chinese language in the Richmond schools where there's a high Chinese population? Would we even have that conversation? No, we wouldn't, because there would be the provincial, federal officials, school boards, they would say that's racist. But somehow we've been made to feel like we're low. I like the way the Métis are made to feel like they're less than garbage, because they think that's okay to pass resolutions that talk about us like somehow we don't matter. That when our kids register, that should just go to the benefit of the territory of the First Nations. I'm sorry, that is not okay with us at the BC Métis Federation, and we're going to speak up loud about this in the coming months. This is the stuff we've got to put an end to. For those of you watching online tonight, this is not okay. And when we talk, it's always wrapped up in this with the leadership groups in BC, with this rights agenda. They use UNDRIP in this way that means they just don't consider us Indigenous people. Those same principles don't apply for us as Métis people. We are not First Nations, we are Métis people. I respect that we have First Nation ancestry, our families, but we held ourselves out separate and distinct, and our families have a known separate culture and language that we've been trying to save and thrive. And so to stop language with young people is just, to me, it's unbelievable. This is happening in Canada right now. It just feels so, to me, unrealistic. And when you look at the therefore be result, I'm not even going to read it because it really frustrates me. But the fact that they reject the prioritization of our language classes in BC over those First Nations and affirms that the Michif language classes must only be established and implemented in B schools once the language class of those First Nations whose territories the schools are located are sufficiently and predictably funded and properly established. We have no funding either. What are we talking about here? It's always about money. It's not about what's fair. It's about as long as there's a pecking order, as long as the First Nations get their way first. And I'm sorry, I just find this toxic and unacceptable. And the First Nation leaders that are behind this, and I can't believe the names I see on these resolutions. You know, people that have been held out as such high regard by myself as well. I'm just so disappointed, and this is not the only one. There's other resolutions. I just want to show the example of what we have to be honest about what we're tackling. I don't want to twist it too much anymore, but Angel, any reaction or thoughts around seeing that kind of stuff and knowing that you deal with a lot of young people with the conservation department? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's really disturbing, and that is a perfect example of what colonization is, to kind of strip Métis from their own identity, especially when it comes to like education. It's hard to believe that it's something we're even discussing, and approaching 2025, that it's socially acceptable to be racist against. Like, this is racism.
It is.
Yeah.
And your thoughts, Joe, on this? I mean, I know your degree, your undergraduate degree is education, your bachelor degree, pardon me. I don't know if people online know, that's my degree as well. I can't believe that this would be allowed to be tolerated with such cultural intolerance in British Columbia or anywhere in Canada. And I can't believe this isn't making more news. This past 8 months ago, and I'm angry, you can tell by my voice, because I can't believe, and then the province passes legislation that almost endorses this stuff. Like, how is this tolerated in this day and age? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Joe. I'm just saying, I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I think whether it's education policy or whatever, it's about the right to control a history, an origin story. Now, the sovereignty of at the Federation, our recognition of First Nation sovereignty is without question. However, we have the right to recover our own history right here in the Pacific Northwest, and we're looking for allies, for supporters, for people who understand that. That's the way of the future, that starts to talk about Métis in terms of respect and mutual recognition, because we're all in it together. And so famous education got us into this mess. I think it was one of the First Nations leaders that just died, Keith, and he said, I forget his name escapes me, but he said that education will get us out. And who knows, perhaps education is the pathway out.
Well, I just want to end with this on this. This is just one piece of it. I want our members to know that this isn't just the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. There's presentations now going on across the province to educators. This is a sample of a slide from by the First Nations Education Steering Committee to all the Indigenous educators in the province. You can see our First Nation leadership have expressed concern regarding Métis education agreements through resolutions and correspondence to the Minister of Education and Childcare. The Summit in the BC Assembly of First Nations and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs passed similar resolutions stating the following in the whereas clause: Métis education agreements between boards of education and Métis organizations are being entered into or contemplated in some school districts. However, they are contrary to the recent School Act Amendments Bill 40 and have been objected by local First Nations in whose territories those boards of education operate. It just carries on. This was just presented last month, and to every Indigenous educator in the province. And what do you think that does? It influences every educator in the province to say, well, geez, we better not worry about the Métis, and I just want to say that there's something fundamentally wrong in British Columbia if we're going to allow this to happen. And so it hasn't ended. There's more information. I won't get into much more of this, but I'm just going to say that we at the Federation are going to continue to try and raise awareness with the Minister of Education and other entities about our concern about the cultural intolerance that this is creating. And it's these, I know people that were in that presentation, and it was almost hostile, the impacts of people that thought Métis students deserved equal education. They were treated really poorly, and so our cultural education. So I think we have to be really, really honest about this. This is not every Métis person in this province is a pretendian. Like, let's get over this narrative that's being perpetuated by these interests, which all revolve about controlling the money and controlling every single thing about how they want to define who we are, and that's not up to them. That is not First Nations control. I'm sorry, it's not. And I'll say it to any First Nation leader that wants to sit and have a reasonable and respectful conversation about that. Anyways, I got to get off this because I'm very disappointed in this. Let's break to some cultural music. I know they think we don't have culture, but we do. This is part of many of our family's culture. Let's go back with Renee Therian and his band and just enjoy some culture despite these challenges. Again, that's some great music from Renee and the band, and we're sorry that Renee can't be here tonight, and obviously Mike is still recovering, so we just want to, again, wish them all the best, and in recovery, Mike, of course, and of course, Renee, we miss you tonight, but you're on the show with us, and that's all that matters. Just a couple other items I just want to finish with, I guess, this evening. We got not much time left this evening. There's a couple of stories I most definitely want to share. I do want to let people know, I neglected to say this earlier, but we are on, as we shared, we're on our YouTube channel as well at BC Métis. But you can also listen to Métis Coffee Talk on Spotify now. So, Angel's influences made us get to more technology if people want to listen to the show online on Spotify after. So I know sometimes people have internet connection challenges and it's unfortunately on their end, but certainly we encourage you to go look for us on the Spotify channel if you just want to listen to the show itself. We also want to acknowledge some of the work of our team. Earlier this month, we had an event called the Merry Mingle and Jingle event. And I want to thank, of course, Joe Desjardins and his wife, Danielle. We had a community event here in the office in Vancouver for the greater Vancouver area. You know, Joe, it was on November 30th, and I know a lot of kids were out and they got a lot of toys and presents. Was it fun? Let's cut away from the negative stuff to something really positive.
Yeah, you bet, Keith. There was over 40 people in here. We even put a Santa hat on Louis behind us, so we all got into a celebration, and it was just nice to see the kids come out and get some gifts and really enjoy just being with one another and learning a little bit more about our culture at the same time. I'm so proud to see that there's interest in a growing Métis community right here in the Lower Mainland. So, and next year, we're going to keep posted because we're going to have more events, and people are really excited to come out. We're hearing a real groundswell of interest. So.
Perfect. And, I just want to acknowledge our friends online from Terrace. Last weekend, I was there with our Vice President, Earl Belcourt. We were up in Terrace on December 8th with the Skeena River Métis Community Association, and they had their Christmas dinner and social. What a great event. There must have been 40 to 50, again, kids very excited when Santa was there. And I just want to thank Elizabeth and, of course, Roseanne, Jordan, Helen, the entire team from up there, Ray. I mean, what a great dinner they do each year, and it gets a little bit better every single year. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you for the work you did in Terrace, and it was great to see the Métis families up in Terrace. And there must have been about 100 to 120 people plus in the Legion up there for the event, and it was a great event. Now, just a couple other information pieces for you, all of you online. In terms of other community developments, if you will, I want to acknowledge and thank the leadership group of the Métis Association of Central Okanagan. Earlier just last weekend, and I know that our very own Angel Fisher was there representing with the program, but the Métis Association of Central Okanagan, basically based mostly out of Kelowna. Congratulations to the board, and they had their Christmas gathering on December 12th. And Angel, any feedback on the event? Well attended. How was the community? How things looking strong over there?
Yeah, definitely. Tanner and I headed up there. Unfortunately, we got stuck in some really bad snowy weather on the connector, so we kind of got there more towards the end. But it was still a full room and a lot of happy faces there, and it was great to see everybody out at Mako.
Perfect. Well, congratulations to the leadership group. I know our former board member, Louise Lambert, is there, and many others. We see many of our friends and partners that are helping with us on a number of fronts, our youth rep, or, you name it, you have a history person, part of the research team there. And so just want to say thank you to the team and everyone that's contributing. I know that's one of Greg Mazur, his son is with the beard in the middle there, and thank you for continuing to work in your father's legacy, and we really appreciate that, of course. And thank you all the members that showed up to make this event special. How many people were there that night?
Oh gosh, I don't know, but it was full. It was a full room.
Well, I always say in the Métis community, if you feed them, they will come. So when you offer dinner, it's great. Just another quick update for those of you online as well. I don't know if people saw, but I sure hope you did. I want to thank our provincial leadership group. We've decided to make a serious policy shift. For eligible full members, your fees are waived. We don't want to charge. Times are tough. We're getting a lot of financial barriers brought forward to us. So as of January 1st, all membership fees will be waived for children 18 years of age and younger. So just remember that. So I know it is stalling some people from completing their membership process. If any individuals 18 years of age or under, after January 1st, please just get the application in. We will cover the cost of the card. We will get through the process together. And I'm very thankful to our provincial leadership group that are just looking out as best we can and helping in any way we can with families that are all trying to figure out how to make ends meet in these difficult times. A couple just quick final things. I know we're really running short on time here, but I just want to remind people about our we just posted a little bit of update from the new Michif, the winter Michif French newsletter. Thank you to the team, Jeannie and Cardinal, and of course Renee Therian, who's the portfolio holder. We have a number of new pieces of information for the winter Michif French language that we've been working on for some time. I encourage you to get online and have a look at it, and great work, team. We really appreciate that. And just a couple final items I want to share with you as well. A reminder about employment opportunities. Again, bcmétis.work. We updated the website URL. I think most of you will be familiar with that. We've now got some new opportunities for jobs and whatnot for your members and friends and partners. So just remember, go to job. If you have information, you have a job opportunity, email it to our team at jobs@bcmétis.com. Or you can see the openings on our updated website, bcmétis.work. And finally, we are closing our office starting this Friday. So our offices will be closed December 21st, and we open basically January 6th. So as of this Friday, the lights go off and we come back right after basically the New Year's, and we'll be open, I think it's Monday, January 6th is the official first date. So, lots of things going on. So I just, as we come to a close here, Angel, any final comments? I know I kind of brought you into some political stuff. I didn't mean to. Hope that was okay, but thanks for your updates, and any final thoughts you want to share with the folks online tonight?
Just thanks for tuning in, and I hope everyone takes time during this break to reconnect and regenerate and enjoy themselves. Happy holidays.
Perfect. And Joe, we might lose our battery here, so any final comments from yourself you want to share?
I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and that you can, again, just find time to rest, reflect, and thank you for everybody being involved in the Métis movement through the BC Métis Federation and partners. Thank you.
Perfect. And to all of you, again, my name's Keith Henry. I'm the president of the BC Métis Federation. We're not going to have the closing piece because we're running a little short on time. I just want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas from our board and our staff, and to all of our partners. Thank you for our work together. I know some of that road is rocky, but we're here to work for our ancestors. We're here to work to help make things better for future generations of Métis people, and we take that extremely serious. And I just want to stress to people that, we have to be strong enough to deal with the challenges we have, and when people make us feel uncomfortable, we have to just be honest about it, and we have to address it. And it's not to say we want to fight every single issue that we've got in this world. Lord knows I don't need another argument with someone. But at the same time, what's wrong is wrong, as I often say in my own way. And I just want to leave you with those people that think that we don't have a real, how do I say this without sounding offensive? We don't have a real culture. We don't have a real, sort of people. We don't have, we haven't faced trauma. And I liked how that First Nations individual said that, Isaac, because when our families fought, and my family did, and I've shared that story, and I've been attacked, just so you know, online a lot, behind the scenes, emailing me saying I'm a fake Métis and that's not a true story, and and this and that and the other thing. It just makes me sad. It makes me sad to realize how toxic some of this world can be. And here's what I remember. This is my great-great-grandfather laying dead in Turon Coulee in Fish Creek. This is my great-great-great-grandfather, Donald Ross, who died on May 12th of 1885. We need to understand that we're here to right what was wrong with them. They fought alongside with First Nation, with Dakota and Cree people in that particular Northwest Rebellion, or the Batoche, or whatever you want to call it. We are tied together, and until our people understand and we learn our stories and we share history, we will face this lateral violence. So we have responsibilities, and I take this extremely, extremely serious. So I'm asking us all, before we go to Christmas, remember that we need to allow cultural space for all of us to be celebrated and honor our past. Yes, First Nations have an important history to reconcile. So do we. This is my story. My family was killed too. So we need to be honest about this, and we got to stop this nonsense. I'm asking First Nation leaders in BC to stop the nonsense and stop creating cultural warfare. We've been through enough. And that's how I want to leave it for 2025. We got to do better than this. So with that, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and we will continue to make things better. Good night, everyone.